Alright, everyone. I'm back with Volume 2 of my NBA preseason predictions and previews for the 2020-2021 NBA season. And what better way than to go into Volume 2 than by talking about my number 2 all-time favorite NBA team, and that's the Boston Celtics. When last seen, the Boston Celtics were playing against the Miami Heat. And, excuse me, in the fourth quarter of Game 6, they were giving up about 38 points. They were unable to stop the tandem of Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. And the Boston Celtics were one of the last three teams standing and dealing also with injuries at the same time to Gordon Hayward and Kemba Walker. Even though the Boston Celtics made the postseason, which I was happy for, I was glad they also made it past the first round. It was still a disappointing finish for Boston in my book. They were the higher seed and the only team in the East that finished in the top 5 in both defensive efficiency and offensive efficiency. But despite losing 5 rotation players in mid 2019, the Boston Celtics took a big leap forward, and once again ended up coming up short, losing in the conference finals for the third time in the last 4 years. It was heartbreaking, if I could say it that way. It truly was. But going into this year, speaking of the key players on the roster, Gordon Hayward, he ended up going to the Charlotte Hornets in free agency. I believe he opted out of the final year of his contract with Boston, and he ended up going to Charlotte. Boston wasn't able to work out a sign and trade deal that brought back any players, but they have a large trade exception now, and Gordon Hayward's departure allowed them to use the full mid-level exception to sign Tristan Thompson of the who did he play for? The Cleveland Cavaliers before coming here, I believe. I want to say it was Cleveland, but anyway. He's going to have to flip the figurative switch after playing for the worst defense on Cleveland for the last 2 years. And I believe it was Cleveland that he last played for before coming to Boston. And with Gordon Hayward being gone, one of the many things that's missing here is depth. Gordon Hayward played in only 5 of the 17 playoff games last year that the Celtics were involved in, and the Celtics still have 4 quality premier players on the roster. You have Kemba Walker, you have Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. Excuse me. But what's more surprising is with the departure of Gordon Hayward, he averaged 17.5 points, almost 7 rebounds, and had 4 assists last year, and it leaves Boston significantly thinner at the forward positions and more susceptible to absences within the first line group. But if the Boston Celtics are going to go as far as what they did last year, at least as far as making the playoffs, they're going to need Kemba Walker back at full strength. But seeing as he's still dealing with the left knee issue, that's a concern because with the season starting on another, I think the regular season starts on another 2 more days. I think so. Yeah, today's December 20th, so in another 2 more days, if my memory serves correctly, that's when the season's going to start. But with Kemba Walker and his knee issues, rumor is that that's going to keep him off the floor for quite a while as far as the start of the season goes. But with him also dealing with that injury, the Celtics could also be depending on Jeff Teague more than they should. I mean, he's 32 years old, but I mean, I literally had no idea that he had even been signed by Boston. I think a a year ago or two, I thought he originally retired or he was still on the free agent block. But Jeff Teague's got a ton of playoff experience. But for the last 2 years, he's been hitting on bad teams. Hopefully that can change when with his tenure here on Boston. But more importantly, speaking of the starting five, that leads me to Jason Tatum. He managed to put pen to paper on a contract extension that would keep him with Boston through at the very least the 2024-2025 NBA season. $195 million in 5 years was the maximum extension, I believe. But with 1 year remaining on his rookie deal, his extension won't kick in until the 2021-2022 season, which would result in staying in Boston until 2025 at the minimum, with a player option worth about $37 million for the 2025-2026 season. And he made a huge scoring leap last year, and he showed signs of playmaking improvement in the playoffs. I hope that carries over should Boston make it that far. Which, being the optimist that I am, I believe that Boston will make the playoffs. I'll get into that in a little bit. Jaylen Brown, he inked a $114 million 4-year contract extension, and this rest assures that the star wing is going to remain in Boston until 2024, especially with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in layman's terms. Unless the Boston Celtics fall off the face of the earth, don't make the playoffs, start having bad years, or the team just doesn't overall perform well, the Celtics are going to be title contenders for years to come. And with two of the most talented young players in the league under contract for long term, that would be pretty much a given. And I hope that turns out to be the case, but we'll see what happens whenever that time comes. The starting five, leg issues aside, as far as his knee, Kemba Walker last year averaged about 5 assists per game, 4 rebounds, and 20.5 points. Get well soon. That's really about all I can say as far as Kemba Walker. One of the many key players on the roster, and he's going into the regular season not at 100%. So that's going to be something to look out for. Marcus Smart, 5 assists per game last year, 4 rebounds per game, and 13 points. He became more aggressive last year from an offensive perspective, and I really liked that out of him. Excuse me. He's the guy who makes the quote unquote winning plays, and I thought he did great last year. Jaylen Brown, I want to say it was 20.5 points per game, so let's round it up and say 21. 21 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, so let's say 7, and 2 assists per game. He's not able to create his own offense like what Jason Tatum or Kemba Walker are, but he does everything else, and he does it rather well. Jason Tatum last year, 3 assists per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 23.5 points, let's say 24. He made a huge scoring leap last year, and he showed signs of playmaking improvement in the playoffs. Should Boston make the postseason, which again I hope they do, I think that's going to be one of those many things to look out for if Boston gets that far and Jason Tatum's able to unleash the beast, so to say. he's able to show everyone what he's made of on the court. Danny Theus, a little over 9 points per game. I want to say the stats said 9.3. 9.3 games, let's say 9. 6.7 rebounds per game and about 1.5 assists per game. He had issues against the Miami Heat, but he was still an important complementary screen setter and defender. If hopefully he's improved on that, and we can see what he has to display for everybody going into the regular season on another 2 more nights. For the reserves, this list was kind of difficult for me as far as how to categorize it. But I'm gonna give it a shot here. Here's really about all I've got as far as the reserves. Again, for Jeff Teague, for the last 2 years he's been on bad teams, but he's got a ton of playoff experience, so that might come in handy should we make the offseason. Jeff Teague had 11 points per game, a little more than 5 assists per game, and 2.5 rebounds, so let's say 3 rebounds per game, a little more than 5 assists per game, and 11 points. Tristan Thompson last year, 2 assists per game, 10 rebounds per game, and 12 points. He's gonna have to change some things around. As I said before, he's gonna have to flip the figurative switch after being on Cleveland the last 2 years and not really doing much of anything, at least from what I could see. I didn't really follow him when he was in Cleveland, but there's also I think there's another player I'm forgetting. I can't think of his name though, but Grant Williams, 1 assist per game, 2.5 rebounds per game, and 3.5 points per game. Excuse me. He had some moments in limited minutes in the playoffs last year, and I think this year he should, and he probably will, respectively, see a larger role going into this year. Hopefully, the Boston Celtics make the postseason. That would definitely make me happy. I can rest assure you that much. But as far as their record, I want to say the season is shortened to 72 games. My math might be wrong on this, but I want to say 72 minus 24, I believe that's 48, so Boston Celtics finish, I predict this year they finish with a record of 48-24. Finish in the Atlantic Division with a record like that, I think that should put you at maybe 2nd or 3rd place, depending on how the Brooklyn Nets do, or the New Jersey Nets, whatever. Anyway, the Brooklyn Nets, I believe they are now. To me, they'll always be the New Jersey Nets, but that's another story for another time. But yeah, going into the Atlantic Division, finish the season with a 48-24 record, and hopefully make the postseason. That would be nice. At least that's what I would like to see. But to quote the Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find that you get what you need. So, do I want the Boston Celtics to make the postseason? Yes, I do. Do they need to make the postseason? I would say yes, but in a perfect world, they would have made it a long time ago in numerous years if they had the likes of Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and the whole 9 on the roster. But that's fantasy booking right there. To use pro wrestling terms, it's fantasy booking, like a fantasy roster. If you were to take a bunch of people who were, who played way back when, like Bill Russell or Larry Bird or Bob Cousy, for example, and put them in the present day, but in their prime, how many more championships would the team have won, for example? We'll never know. But anyway, I should be back within a day or two as far as another video. Volume 3 should be coming up in a little bit. And I will be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers, and the defending NBA champions. My number 3 all-time favorite NBA team, and that would be the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm curious to see how they do this year also. So, keep an eye out for more videos. Thank you for the continued support of my channel. Follow me on Instagram, PlayStation Network, whatever other forms of social media that I'm on. The links should be on my profile page, where you can see you see the links like for, you know, PlayStation Network, YouTube page, and, you know, Twitch, LinkedIn, whatever other forms of social media that you can connect with people on. My pages should be there. And with that being said, drop a comment, give a thumbs up, continue to support the channel, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my page, follow me on Instagram, and let me know what you guys think. So keep an eye out, again, for another video or two, maybe within the next day or two. I'll try and get as many videos out as I can before the regular season starts. And we'll just take it from there. So in the meantime, have a good one. Take care, stay safe, be well, and I will talk to you whenever the time comes, I guess. So have a good one. I'm out.